All right. Hey, folks. Sorry about that. I was early, and I'm like, all of a sudden, it's a minute after 7. It's Tom. Hi, guys. It's May 5th. Revenge of the 5th. That's tomorrow. We're going to do the 6th from now on, I'm hearing. I like that better anyway. How's everybody doing? I hope everybody's okay. Hope everybody's kind of staying moving and keeping busy. Things are starting to open up. We'll see how that goes. We're not just me by myself here. But I want to keep bringing these to you. We're going to do this for the entire month of May and into June, and then I think we're actually going to be live streaming some of our actual classes that we're going to have, at least one live stream a week, because I know there are folks here that are out of the region completely that are getting something out of this, and I really appreciate that. So thank you guys for being on. Thank you all for being here, whether you're watching it now or watching it later, right? So a couple notes. I've got a bunch of little quick cuts that I need to make. Just chatting with a few folks about those. I know I haven't put any up in a while, but what I'll do is I'll cut segments out of these classes and upload them separately. So look for a few more of those to come later this week, because we got some good stuff that we talked about last week, and I want to make sure that's up there and available for you guys. As always, if you have any ideas or anything you want to see covered, shoot me a note or ping me or whatever you need to do. If you want to be in our CSA chat, and if you're taking these classes, I consider you virtually CSA if you're not in the room with me. So let me know. Get your butt in the chat so we can all have some fun and talk and stay connected. We got a Facebook server we're kind of moving away from. We got a Discord server set up that we're moving into, but will happen. All that stuff's going to happen over the next few weeks. Last note I'll make is I send an email distribution out for once a week, one email. Just sent today. I just sent this week's email out. Little note on what we're doing, what our plans are, what we got going on. If you want to be a part of that, message me your email address and I'll add you. Right? No problem at all. And when you want to get off of it, message me that too and I'll take you off. All right. So tonight we're going to do our stand-up conditioning. All right, we'll start off with our stretching, our sun salutation. We'll do some push-ups, sit-ups, jumping jacks. We'll do our footwork that we always do. We'll do our cut combinations. We'll walk through. We'll refresh it because I did it last week, but I wanted to do it again. It's always good to refresh it. I want to go through all 8 guards that we have. The cuts that we do, we'll do through our cut form. And then we'll go through our defensive actions. We'll do a little bit more conditioning, and then at the request of a few folks, and thank you guys for the ideas, we're going to do some defensive attacks. So I'll wheel the heavy bag over, and we'll do some attack on retreat and what that really means, and getting off the line of attack and how you open up the lines of attack with your opponent as you're withdrawing. Right, a defensive withdrawing attack is an incredibly effective maneuver, whether it's in any descending, ascending, rising cuts, horizontal cuts, whatever the strike is. We'll go through a few of them tonight, and we'll do some drills that you can follow. With that, let's get things rolling. All right, let's start with our stretching. So feet shoulder width apart, nice and relaxed, up to the ceiling. Down to the floor, toes, knees, ankles, whatever you can reach. Walk it out, downward dog. Butt up in the air, push those heels toward the floor. Dive down, roll up into cobra. Stretch your lower back. Up into plank. Sorry for those that just took the yoga class. A little bit extra never hurts. Left foot up. Get a nice stretch. Back. Right foot forward. And back. Not used to working out in these pants anymore. Going a little old school tonight. Back up into downward dog. This time chin to your chest, head between your arms. And walk it forward. Stay in a nice squat on your tiptoes. We're going to roll up all the way to the ceiling. It's a great way to work those stabilizers and increase your balance. So roll up nice and slow. Hear my knees cracking. That was good. All the way to the ceiling. And out to the walls. Stay on your tiptoes the entire time. And down. Ooh, now my shoulders are cracking. Good. That's what it's supposed to do. All right, jumping jacks, 25 jumping jacks. your pace. I'm going to shut my mic off when I do it so you don't hear me breathing and bouncing on the floor. All right, ready? Go. I almost lost my mic. I thought I did there for a second. All right, push-ups. So 20 push-ups. Then we're going to roll right over and do 40 sit-ups. So I know there's a push-up challenge. I think it ended today. 50 push-ups. I know we were going to do that tonight. We'll table that and we'll do it next week. But we're going to do a whole bunch of push-ups here anyway tonight. So good job for anybody that went through that. Russell and a bunch of other folks. I know that were in it. It's a pain in the butt, but it was a really good workout. I did it too. It was good. So with that, 20 push-ups, roll over, 40 sit-ups. As always with push-ups, right? There's a great variety of push-up styles and techniques you can do, right? Whichever one you do, like anything, do it with intention, right? If you intend to do pulses, right? If you intend to do pulses, little movements, great, right? If you think you're doing a full push-up and you're doing pulses, you're doing pulses, not a full push-up. So do it with intention. You can get benefit out of any of those, but if you're going to do a full push-up and that's your intention, then do a full push-up. Upper arm should be parallel to the ground on the down. Doesn't mean your nose or body has to touch the ground, and up, right? You don't have to necessarily lock out those elbows when you come up. Watch out for the hyperextension. But you want to do, that's the full push-up you can do, right? So whatever style you do, again, just do it with intention, right? Do what you expect to be doing, get what you expect to get out of it. With that, let's roll over and do sit-ups. So 40 sit-ups. I gotta lower the volume on this. It's a little, I think it's getting a little feedbacky. Sorry, guys. So 40 sit-ups. I'm gonna do crunches, your style, right? And let's shut this off and go. And that's 40. So again, as everyone catches up, your style, there are a ton of great abdominal exercises you can do. Make sure, again, you're doing exercises that you know work those specific body parts and parts of your core, right? So if you're going to do crunches, great. You're going to do leg lifts, great. You're going to do oblique twists, great. Again, there's a ton of exercises. If you need any ideas, hit me up. I will happily give you, at least 3 or 4 different exercises, but just Google, abdominal crunches variations, whatever. You'll find so many. All right. Let's do our footwork. So our standard footwork drill, right? We're going to do same-sided advance and retreat first, like we always do. So right foot left, right foot forward, left foot back. Good stance, equal weight distribution, front and back foot. And again, why do we do that? That's so if I overload my front leg, if I overload my rear leg, I have to shift my weight to move in any direction, right? Again, it all comes down to moving with intention. If I know that I'm loading up my rear leg because I want to slip the front leg and not have to do a transition weight and then slip, great, right? You're doing it for a purpose. Cool. For the footwork though, I want to keep it very balanced. For our base stances and base guards, I want to keep them very balanced. Equal weight distribution front and back leg. Step forward with our right foot, keep your hands up. That way you're engaging your full body. Keep your core tight. We're going to step and pull our back leg in like we always do. Retreat, we're going to place and pull ourselves back into position. Really work on varying your distancing when you do this. Okay, all right. 10 up, 10 back. Ready? Go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Good. Look forward. In this drill, right, we are moving very linearly in this drill, right? Our opponent is across from us, not off to the angles, or across from us. So what does that mean? That means my front foot and my front knee point toward my opponent. They point to the direction I want to cut. They point to the direction I want to move. If I start torquing my knee and my foot forward, or I torque my foot and try to get my knee forward, I create a lot of tension there, right? And that's just going to lead to deterioration of the joints and ligaments and muscle and everything else around those pivot points, whether it's your ankle or whether it's your knee, right? And we don't want to do that. We are athletes, right? As Tanner says, it's not not sports ball, it's nerd stick, right? So anyway, we're athletes, right? We are doing very ballistic movements. Our feet, we're doing a lot of movement with our footwork, so you got to make sure you have proper alignment. If you don't have proper alignment, this will hurt you over time. Easy way to fix that. Proper alignment when you do your footwork. Foot forward, knee aligned over your foot. Both aligned in the direction you're traveling or the direction you want to cut. If I go to the left, I'm going to cut to the left naturally. If I try to cut to the right, I'm going to start torquing my body. I'm not going to have as efficient of a movement as I can possibly get. Foot in. So now, switch feet, left foot forward, right foot back. Same thing, 10 up, 10 back. Gathering steps. Step, pull into place, step back, pull yourself back. Ready? Go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Right. So, one more note when you're doing these, keep your upper body very quiet. And what I mean by that is not a lot of random moves, right? I don't want to do my advances. Oops, let me do this so you can see it on the side. And my head transcribe this sine wave, right? I need a Madden cam to show the sine wave of my head bouncing up and down, right? Keep your head nice and flat, like you got a shelf you've got to do these footwork under. You've got to advance and retreat, keeping your head and upper body very quiet. Once you do that, over time, you'll start to divorce those two parts of your body from a synchronized movement perspective. Just like any piano player, drummer, any musician of any kind, or any athlete of any kind, you can start to play. Piano's great. You can play different bass keys than treble keys, right? I can start cutting. Right now, when we start, and we do the cutting drill later, you're going to do a cut per move, per step, right? A cut per step. Over time, you want to be able to cut independent from your footwork, right? So the only way you can do that is practicing and isolating your footwork like we're doing tonight. All right, so double advance, double retreat. Right foot forward, 2 steps in, 2 steps back. Okay? Again, vary the pace, vary your distancing that you're making with your steps. Start to learn, what does a double advance mean for me? A same side advance, double advance, I move about 5.5, 6 feet. My height. There's a correlation there. Look it up. It's not a passing step, right? It's an advancing step, same side. My natural advancing step is roughly my height. So learn that for you and then start to vary it. Little ones, big ones, long ones. Get used to stepping more. I have short legs. If I'm fighting Caleb or I'm fighting Thomas here in the school, right? I've got to compensate for my shorter legs for their increased stride. So I've got to take longer steps, especially retreating. I say this all the time, right? Naturally, as humans, we take smaller steps going backwards than we do going forward. I say it all the time to you guys. Sorry if I sound a little broken record there. That's why when I got to retreat, I'll have to prep that, take a farther step back than my normal retreating walk, and take a much broader step back so I can stay out of measure. Or, better way to say it, I can maintain the measure that I want, the distance that I want to my opponent. So, right foot forward, left foot back. Double advance, double retreat. Ready? Go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Good. So what did I do there? Saw me kind of syncopate my rhythm a little bit, right? I wasn't going in a controlled, consistent rhythm. Good. Right? Little one, quick one, right? A little kind of syncopation in the beat is always good, right? Again, you're setting the pace, you're setting the distance, you're setting the tempo, and you can use your footwork to design and orchestrate what you're doing, right? Using these terms deliberately, right? So think of it that way. So as you're practicing, right, and we're only doing 20 of these back and forth, that's nothing. You should be doing this. I do it every day, sitting in my office. People think I'm nuts. They'll walk by my door and see me kind of pacing. It's harder on a video chat now. Everybody's on video conference now. It's harder now. But anyway, work that up. And again, how long does it take me? How big is my retreat? Really, the best thing you can do as a fighter is become comfortable understanding measure, right? And the range to your opponent. You can control that range, or at least your side of that range. It will make you a better fighter, right? I don't care the discipline, I don't care the art, it'll make you a better fighter, right? So left foot forward, right foot back. Ready? 2 up, 2 back. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Good. Nice. Grab your saber, or your stick, or your broom, or your longsword, or your, I don't care what. We'll turn it on for today. Why not? Okay, so let's go through some guards. Let's talk about some guards. I'm going to shut that off. So last week, Thursday, Tuesday, I don't remember what day it was. Anyway, days are kind of blurring together for all of us, I think. We went through all of our guards again. Let's do that again now. So we're going to start right foot forward, left foot back, middle guard. The most fundamental guard you can have. Give anybody anything, anytime in their life, and say, get on guard, defend yourself, and they will line up pretty much like this. Arms are out. They might have it here. They might have their arms in, right? Arms are extended. Tip is pointing at your opponent's eyes. Why? We can't see depth very well as humans. So if this tip is pointing at my eyes, I can't see how long this blade is, which will then impact how close that blade is to my face, right? So middle guard, very defensive posture, right? It's making my opponent do something, right? If they want to attack me straight on, they have to come through what I have in front of them first. So right foot forward, left foot back. Nice comfortable distance in our bend in our knees, right? Equal weight distribution. Front foot's pointing forward, front toes are pointing forward. Saber's out in front of us. Arms are extended, right? Recognize your areas of vulnerability here, right? I've got this front line of attack, the center line of attack, very well covered. The line on either side, my outside or my inside, is open, and of course my arm is the forward target. Right? So a very juicy and very valid target is to come down and perform a valid strike onto someone's arm because it is the target they're presenting to you in that measure. Right? So realize that. Right? Middle guard, low guard. So I'm not dramatically moving. This time I'm not really moving my backhand much. I'm just lowering my front hand and pointing that tip down to my opponent's knees, ankles, toes, depending on the distance to my opponent. When I do that, if you look in the side camera here, right, you should see this space all of a sudden open up. So what am I doing? Right? I'm opening up my high line of attack. High line from the sternum up, right? Low line below the sternum. I'm opening up my high line of attack. Why? Because I want my opponent to attack me on my high line. Why? Because in my head I've got 2 or 3 techniques that I'm going to do that respond to a high line attack. I'm a very counter-offensive counter puncher. I'm a parry riposte. I'm a counter attacker, right? I've developed that over the years. I wasn't always that. I used to be very much an offensive and aggressive fighter. Nothing to do with age or youth or anything. I'm actually in better shape now than I was my entire life. And I think I'm a little quicker than I used to be as well, right? Which doesn't say something to my younger self. But regardless, I like that style of response to my opponent. Now, a response could be, I see an opening and I'm going to take it. It doesn't have to be a direct parry riposte situation. I can take an opening that my opponent is giving me if I see that. So you can be a counterpuncher and still land the first strike, right? But I'm not necessarily going out and making that first opening, at least not in my style, right? Absolutely valid styles, and there are a lot of guys here that fight the opposite of that way, will immediately make themselves an opening, and that's their style of fighting. Great to fight different styles because you get to be a better fighter as you go, right? So I drop down into low guard. Now I'm inviting, it's an invitation, I'm inviting my opponent to strike my high line. If I get an opponent that strikes my low line with my blade down, what do I care? They're going to still have my blade, or they're not going to come in. It's super easy for me to defend that and counterattack. So that's on them, right? If your opponent doesn't take your invitation, sometimes you just got to force the issue and you got to take the aggressive, which is fine as well. So middle guard, low guard. Now we're going to suck our opponent into us. We're going to step back with our right foot, pull our blade out of the line of attack into rear low guard. So what am I doing here? Super open, right? I've got I'm not presenting a tip to my opponent in high line or low line. My tip is back, right? So to do that, I'm really giving my opponent the entire outside and most of the front of my body. It's a very offensive stance because if I get into this stance, I'm going to try to attack you, right? Whether I'm going to step back with a counterattack, we're going to talk about later today, whether I'm going to step out with a rising attack off the line of attack and create a new one, whether I do a compound attack where I come up and around and strike from the top slower. We'll talk about that. We've talked about that. We'll touch on it again because I'm transitioning from rear low into shoulder guard before that first attack, right? A lot you can do. I can even be super tricky and come around to the outside, right, and come to the opposite line of attack. But again, I'm stepping through one guard, 2 guards to get to it. So it's almost like a third level of a kind of an attack. Slower, less probability. All right, so again, right foot forward, left foot back, middle guard. Low, rear low. Now, from here, just bring your blade up into your shoulder. And I've gone through this a million times. Nice and relaxed, bring your arm up, there's where it goes. Shoulder guard. Again, very offensive, very aggressive. You saw me come down for a high attack before from low guard. I came right through shoulder guard, right? We call these kamae, postures, right? You know, Aaron's talked about this a bunch of times because we studied the same art years ago. So kamae are movements, postures. They are moments of time. It's your transition point. So as I cut an attack, if something happens and I have to stop here, middle attack, I'm going to do a descending attack. I'm going to step back. Oh, I had to stop here because they went another direction. Didn't make sense to forward the attack. Now I'm in a shoulder guard. I know what to do here because I trained from this position. So as I transition through various guards, I train from those guards to then give me understanding of what my options are when I'm in those guards in the course of an encounter. So rear low, up into shoulder. very relaxed. I'm not forcing my shoulder up. I'm not driving it down. I'm not holding it up over my head. That's another guard, right? I'm not holding it down here. I'm not being, Joe Jedi, right? Nice and relaxed. Blade straight up and down. I'm not cocking it from side to side. Something could get in the way. Highest probability of attack from here. My direct attack from here is, of course, a descending strike. Bang. Top of the head. Shortest point, straight line. Shortest distance between 2 points, straight line. I'll say it right one of these days. All right? So, shoulder guard. Now, high guard. From here, raise your blade up to the center of your head, looking through your arms. Don't cover your face, because then you can't see. Should never have to say that, but everybody does that. Arms are up. I don't have a tail. I don't have a horn, because look what happens to my wrist. I want to maintain that nice handshake grip, right? We've talked about this. I like to do this, right? We've talked about a handshake grip for the saber. I don't care, sword, saber, doesn't matter what you have, right? My hands are out. I'm not hammer gripping it. I'm not gripping it with a thumb grip. Different weapons may require this, right? Nice handshake grip. It crosses my body. Some folks will rest it in the crease of their hand, palm, sorry. Some will rest it on the outside of that muscle. It really depends on what style you study, right? So, handshake grip. Nice thing is, no matter what guard I go in, I can maintain that grip structure, right? Contact, very strong, right? When I'm attacking and when I'm hitting, right, my full hand is grabbing this. If I death grip this saber all the time, I'm going to start consuming a lot of energy that I just don't want to consume on holding a saber. So I'll keep a very nice, loose, open grip. And when I attack, I will constrict. Just like when you punch, it's really, really loose, strike, right at the last second there, right? Same thing with kicks, same thing with any weapon you carry, right? Probably an analogy in there with fishing. I'm sure it's a nice loose grip until you cast, and then you want to, I don't fish, but it feels right. Anyway, so middle guard, right foot forward, left foot back. Let's do this together. Low guard. Step back into rear low. Realize what you just did. You opened up space. I was here. Look in the side view mirror, side view camera here. I stepped back. I opened this space up. That was an intentional move to create space between me and my opponent. Either I feel threatened and I want to start and give myself some more time to think, or I'm giving an initial invitation to middle guard, and as they start to advance, I pull them in and basically suck them into a vortex of me, right, of my space to attack. So rear low guard, up into shoulder, direct, high probability attack, vertical cut straight down. If someone is across me, bump tog, right, Posledana, whatever you want to call it, right, they are going to attack you, cut straight down, or they're going to come off to the side for a high line attack. It is a very offensive guard to be in. High guard, right? Again, very few attacks that the direct and highest probability attack from here is a straight descending cut forward to the top of the head. Can I do other attacks? Absolutely, right? I can do a rotational strike on the high line to either side. I can do a low cut. But realize when I do that, I'm stepping through 1, 2 guards, 3, before I get to my cut. So I'm stepping through a number of guards. So what do we talk about when we do this? Right? When we look at an opponent across from us, I'm throwing a ton of content from other classes into this one because it just feels right. Right? If we are across from our opponent, right, and they go into a high guard, as an opponent, I'm going to plan for the highest probability attack they can make, because that's going to be the quickest attack. And I'm not talking quick because they're fast. I'm talking quick because it's the shortest distance they need to travel to go from where their blade is to hitting me. Right? So I'm not talking speed. Speed's an illusion. I'm talking about time and distance. Right? So if it takes less time and travels less distance, it's going to, by nature, hit me before something that travels farther and longer. There's something very obvious about that, right? I don't train to be faster. I train to be efficient. Someone comes across from me and they're in high guard. the most direct attack they can throw is straight down. It'll take the least amount of time and travel the least distance. So I'm going to plan for that attack as a defensive position or as my response to their attack. The nice thing is, if they do it from another different attacking vector and a different path, it will take more time because it's traveling a longer path for their blade. So I'll have more time to respond. Even a high line horizontal attack travels this arc coming around. Now, I think that arc is a little bit longer than that arc. Maybe that's what? I don't know. Maybe 90 degrees. And this is easily 180 plus some vertical movement. So it's going to take a little bit more time. So you want to use the guards and invitations that you present to force your opponent to move into a guard that you want, which will then give you a set of probability of attack that can come at you, which you can then weigh different timings and everything else. So a lot in there, right? I think there's a couple of quick cuts that I've got out there on timing and voiding and things like that that you can follow up on. So right foot forward, left foot back, middle guard, low guard, rear low. Feel that pull. Shoulder. Think about that direct attack. High guard. Feel that movement that's going to come down. Right? Now I want to step forward and do an inside middle guard here. So I'll do it on the right side too, right? So you can see it better in the camera. I'm not forward middle guard. I'm in an inside middle guard. My hands no longer become a point of target. Remember, we were here in middle guard. My arm and hands are the farthest target, closest to my opponent, right? And inside middle guard, guarded stance, my hands and my target marks become in the same plane as the rest of my body. So I can defend the middle line very well from here, as well as launch thrusting attacks, launch rotational cutting attacks. I can defensive position, like really position myself to move into a lot of different angles from this inside middle guard. So again, I went from high guard to inside guarded, right? Then we're going to go roll up, bring our hands up into a high, what I call high forward guard. I've taken all of our guards, and I know you guys know this, and I've said it, but I need to say it every once in a while again. All of our guards come from a number of historical systems throughout the world, whether they come from the Kenjutsu background that I started with, the classical fencing background that I have, or the historical European work that we've been doing here for 2-3 years now. And you know, my guys have a lot more experience in that space, right? Whether it's longsword or rapier, right? Those guards, and depending on the master, right, all have different names. There's some commonality, but certainly when you start going French, German, English, Italian, you start seeing variations. So I took all those, and especially once you get into the Eastern arts, right? I took those names of those invitations and those kamae and those guards, and I basically boiled them down to very simple terms. So inside, forward middle guard, low guard, rear low, shoulder, high guard, inside middle, forward high. Now, this is an interesting guard. We just got to this one, right? My arms are not out in front of me where they become forward targets. They can be, but the base guard, they're not here, they're in, right? It's a very defensive guard. Any of those high line cuts that come down, if I'm in a high forward guard against someone in a high guard, I'm covered. Yes, they can come to the opposite side, right? But yes, I can rotate and move, or I can pull back and come down to an inside middle guard block, right? But in a high forward guard, it's a very defensive position. What can I do from here? I can certainly thrust easily, right? Even a little demi lunge like this, where my front leg is bent, my back leg is straight, but I'm not doing a full lunge, right? I can certainly thrust into the face. I can thrust in while keeping their blade in opposition on mine, especially if they come in for a high attack. I can parry and keep it in opposition and thrust in. I can do some rotational cuts from here, where I actually push down with the pommel, pivot around my front hand, and strike to the outside, right? I can do that in both a horizontal fashion. I might realize, look at my front hand really isn't moving. It's placed in the room. My backhand is really rotating everything around. I can come down for downward descending strikes. There's a lot you can do from there. Again, highest probability of attack is going to be that defensive strike because it's the shortest distance to travel. My tip is out, in, right? And depending on how comfortable they are with a lunge, I can come in pretty far and maintain good structure and balance. Foot's down, back foot is flat, not angled, flat. Heel is down. I drive my power from my heel. Front leg is out. My knees over my instep. My toes and my knees are pointing forward, right? Recover. Pull from my back leg. Recover. Lunge. Recover. We talked about lunge actually a couple weeks ago, I think. I got to do a quick cut on lunge because it's a very difficult technique that if you do it wrong, may still work because a lot of people don't see that thrust coming at their body because, again, we see depth very poorly as human beings. So that thrust coming at your head, most people don't see it or can't necessarily read that distance. So it is a very successful attack to throw, but it's also a very dangerous attack to throw because if you put your body before your blade and you lunge before you thrust, you're going to bring yourself into the measure of your opponent and open up all the stars without really presenting any threat of the blade. Right? So make sure that when you do lunge, it's blade first and then your body. And we actually pulled the little tennis balls down here a couple weeks ago and I showed that drill. So last guard, we're going to do a high forward, right? Middle. So I'm really up high. I want to kind of open up my low line to encourage an attack to my low line. Same thing I'm doing here, but you can see I'm kind of opening my outside. Right? Here I want to square up a little bit more to my opponent and really kind of force them to my low line. Right? So I can then void, counterattack, slip the cut, counterattack in. We'll talk a few of those in a few minutes, but we've covered the voids and counters quite a bit. All right, cool. Let's go through that without me talking. Ready? Right foot forward, left foot back, middle guard. Low guard. Rear low. Shoulder. High guard. Inside middle, stepping forward. High forward. Forward direct. All right. So, I think that was 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yes. We've tweaked them over the years, right? We used to have different guards that we practiced here, different invitations. We had ones that were one handed up and the other hand out, very Conan-like. We did rear low, differentiate between a side low and a rear low. We'll probably continue to evolve it over the years and do something different next year. That's the great thing about fencing and fighting is we've got this wealth of knowledge to pull from and incorporate into what we do. And by the way, everything we do in here is 100% applicable to any weapon you have in your hand. Today I happen to have a lightsaber, an LED saber. Tomorrow I'll have a longsword, right? Or a military saber or whatever. All right, so that was our 8 guards. Let's do some cuts. Okay, so cut drill. Right foot forward, left foot back. We're going to start in middle guard. We're going to skip the single up and back. We're going to do 2 cuts up, 2 cuts back. So what I want to do is step forward, downward strike, descending cut, end in guard in a half cut. Come back around, horizontal cut, midline cut. Retreating, descending cut, midline cut. Right? So think about that. What are you doing there? When that combination, I'm cutting down to my opponent's high line, whether inside or they're outside, depending on how they're standing. By doing that, I'm drawing their defense up, which is opening up their middle flank. Right? So 1, 2. Because what I'm doing is I'm drawing this inside middle block. Maybe it's going to be a high block. Maybe you see them raise their hands up when they defend. Even if they drop down low, a cut coming in here that I then reverse to do a midline cut, my torso becomes wide open. Right? So it's a really good and effective cutting combination. You're essentially going from a high line to a midline, so you're forcing that defense, and it's actually difficult for someone to parry that depending on where you cut in the midline, because a natural inside middle block is not going to get us down that much lower than maybe mid-torso. Right? So let's do that. Right foot forward, left foot back. We're going to go 10 times up, 10 times back. First step is a descending cut. Second step is a horizontal cut. Retreating, descending, retreating, horizontal. We're going to switch sides. So, ready? Go. 1, 2. Retreating. 1, 2. Forward. 1, 2. Backwards. That's 2. 3. 4. 5. 6. 7. 8. 9. 10. Good. So when you're doing this, make sure again, your right hand is directional, right? That's your power. Your left hand is rotational, right? Especially if you're using a two-handed grip on the saber like we are here, right? So if I cut down, the direction of going forward is my front hand showing the direction. My back hand rotates it to get the rotational cut. Down, rotate, forward. See my hand come back for that descending strike? Rotate. Can I pull my hand back? Sure, right? But it's a combination. Your hands work in concert with each other. Left foot forward, right foot back, middle guard. Let's go the opposite side. 1, horizontal. Whoops, sorry. 1, horizontal. Retreating. 1, 2. It's 2. 3. 4. 5. 6. 7. 8. 9. 10. Good. You start feeling your shoulders. So, a couple things to note, right? I always talk about this. I will continue to always talk about it. Your body has to follow the blade. The blade has to pull you into the attack, right? If I move my body before my blade and then cut, again, I'm moving myself into my opponent's disc measure. That makes me vulnerable to my opponent. If I let the blade pull my body forward, I'm going to do that super slow. If I let the blade pull my body forward versus me stepping into the attack, and I actually have to pause to make that happen, right? Because I do try to make this muscle memory. For me, it's been a lot. Anyway, let the blade pull you into the attack. Even in the retreats, boom, there's this oppositional force, this repulsion that almost feels like to me when I'm doing a retreating attack. So think about that when you're doing your cuts, right? All right, so we missed our push-ups and sit-ups. That's all right. We're gonna do a 1.5-minute plank at the end as we have been doing. So we'll save our arms because I want to talk about retreating cuts and what that means and go a little bit more on this oppositional force that I was just talking about. All right. So, okay, let's talk a little bit about attacking on the retreat. And I use the term retreat because it's easy to say, right? I don't mean retreat in that I'm trying to run away from my opponent. I just mean I'm withdrawing from the space that my opponent is presenting to me. Right? So picture a bubble around each other's body. We talk about this all the time. Right? That's my space. I want to control that space. My opponent has a bubble equally. I want to control their space. I want to do things that cause them to act in a certain way that gives me the opportunity to control the space. Right? We have luxury of being, 3 feet apart, 6 feet away from each other. So I really have to manipulate space beyond my initial comfort zone. We're not fighting and we're hand-to-hand getting in close, because then I can actually manipulate. Our spaces kind of become one, and I can start to manipulate the actual space behind my opponent and be able to control the space as one space. It's a very similar kind of feeling and concept, but again, I've got to extend my reach out through my sword and into their space. Right? So everyone, we always attack moving forward. We'll talk about forward attacks. Great. They are super effective. You see an opening, create an opening, step to the center line, create a new line, whatever you need to do. Retreating attacks. A couple scenarios. I may have that bull in a china shop across from me that I've been fighting with him. He is an aggressive, or she is an aggressive opponent. They're an aggressive fighter. They are continually charging forward. So if I try to meet that in opposition, it's going to be a collision, right? There's going to be a lot of tension there, and that brings us into a measure that's far too close for these weapons, since we don't do grappling with LED sabering. Puts me in far too, at least in most of the rule sets don't. We don't do, the grappling with this, right? So I don't want to get in close. If I get in too close and I've got a 3-foot stick on the end of why am I in that close? Something has gone wrong, right? I didn't control the distance, right? So withdrawing step is great. Now, we'll talk first about linear and actually just coming straight back. Then we'll obviously go out and do the radial stuff as we go through this. So if I've got an opponent across from me, right, and they're coming in, now they may be throwing 1 or 2 attacks. I've fought them. I'm getting their style. I'm seeing they're throwing 1, 2 attacks in a row. Sidebar, most people throw 1, 2, maybe 3 attacks before they stop. It's pretty rare when you find that fighter that continually goes and pressures until they are told to stop, they complete their action, or you hit them. And you're going to get varying levels of maturity of folks that even if you make the attack, they're going to continue their attack in, right? They're going to wait for some external person to tell them to stop or forcibly stop them, right? You're going to see that whether you're fighting an incredibly experienced fighter or a very new fighter. But again, I think, my opinion, debate me, cool, I'm happy to be wrong, most people will throw 1, 2, or 3 attacks before they actually gas out and stop, right? Know that. If you fight them, you know that. Okay, cool. I want to set them up. Maybe I'll go into a low guard, get them to make an attack. Maybe I will parry their first attack. But as they're coming in, I have a feeling they're going to slow. They're slowing the momentum. I'm going to throw that counter attack, right? When I do that, I don't want to step back, stop, and throw the attack, because then all I'm getting into is the only movement is my arms. So I certainly don't want to set, retreat, set, attack. Too slow. 3 steps. Retreat, set, counterattack. And I have no consolidated, energy into that attack. What I want to do is I want to combine all of that into one tempo, into one moment in time. So as I retreat, it's almost like, I like to think of 2 magnets, right? Similar poled magnets. When you push them together, they actually naturally want to repel each other. There's this force of repulsion, and I'm sure that's the wrong word, that you can feel, right? I like to try to feel that when I'm doing my retreating attacks, because I want to feel my body and my blade working in concert, like those magnetic poles that are that are repelling each other. Bang. That's my attack. So not only is my retreat, my plant, my power, right, and my attack are all in the same tempo, right? So we know tempo. We've talked about, the time it takes to deliver your attack, or the time in which your opponent is delivering their attack, right? So I want to complete this in one tempo. These actions of the retreating and the counterattack I want to do in one set of movements. I don't want to retreat, set, go. That's 2 to 3 tempos, right? I want to bang, feel that tension pull me apart, right? So let's do that for a little bit. Right foot forward. We're doing this in the cuts we're just doing, but I want to focus on this. So right foot forward, left foot back, middle guard. Actually, let's do right foot forward, shoulder guard. So I'm here. I'm opening up my line to my opponent. I'm kind of letting them kind of come at me, right? I'm going to retreat with my left foot. I could step back and retreat as well, right? We can vary our footwork up. Great thing about footwork, got options. I'm going to step back and strike at the same time, right? And again, I want that force of repulsion to move my blade and body together. That really slow. Right? I can't say, like in a forward cut, I can let my blade pull me into the cut. In the retreating cut, I want to feel my body and blade work in opposition but in concert. Does that make sense? I hope so. Anyway, so I'm here. Bang, push. If I want to do a retreating cut, great. Look at the difference just in those 2 alone. I moved a lot less, right? Here, though I'm still presenting quite a forward, I'm not stepping that far back out of distance. Maybe I don't need to. I also have a shorter step, which means it takes less time, right? Versus, now I've created a big opening, created a bigger void, but I did travel a longer distance with the cut. Now, arguably my arms didn't travel any different, so you can actually practice this with the same side. It's actually quite easy. Now, I'm not doing this, right? I'm not breaking my wrist and keeping these all straight, because I lose structure, I lose power, I lose efficiency and everything else, and I get beat. So, shoulder. Let's do rear leg retreating first. Let's do the front leg retreating back. Let's do those 5 times each side. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, retreating back. 4, 5. Good. Notice my hip shifts when I make that cut. If I kept my hips square, if I kept my hips the way they were, I end up being squared out to my opponent. You need to use your entire body when you move, right? Why wouldn't you? Right? You want to use every tool at your disposal. Now, also when I'm doing this retreat, I'm actually stepping back. So I can prep for potentially a forward cut or an offline attack. If my opponent is coming in for their final attack and they're just coming for my leg, right? I can bring my feet together, void this space completely without. So that void can be here. And we talked about this in the voids class. Check that quick clip out. It'll be in there. From here, because I'm not, nothing is loaded, nothing is prepped. But I was able to clear and potentially counterattack. But my secondary movement, what's the next plan in my strategy, is difficult to execute from this position. As opposed to, I'm essentially in our high forward guard, or in our high direct middle guard, right? As I kind of said right in the beginning, it's all